And this afternoon, the raging story, the breaking story, the developing story, and the story that all the country is talking about. We never speak about the judiciary because everyone in the media is scared about being pulled up for contempt. But what when the judiciary does something which should be questioned? And when the executive is yet to step in and the judiciary is doing things which makes the citizen feel that the faith in the judiciary is going to be eroded, that's when the media steps in. And I'm grateful that I am joined by India's #1 jurist, India's #1 constitutional lawyer and expert and King's Counsel, former Solicitor General Harish Salve. Mr. Salve is joining us on a day we are all very, very concerned, Mr. Salve, at what is happening here. For yesterday, the Supreme Court Collegium, we are told and has been reported, has recommended the transfer of Justice Yashwant Varma of the Delhi High Court after an adverse report against him, and that adverse report is regarding a pile of burning cash found in his house when there was a fire reported. It's a very serious issue. Some people are saying the amount could be as high as 10 crore rupees in cash. I want your first initial observations, Mr. Salve. Has the Collegium done the right thing by recommending his transfer? Matters also being picked up in Parliament right now. What should the Collegium have done? What was the appropriate thing to do?
Arnab, I have been a trenchant critic of this collegium system, and this exposes yet one another strong fault line, if I may say so, in this whole construct by which our judiciary is administered. And let me tell you why. I caveat it by saying I have only seen the newspaper reports. And therefore, if there is an explanation, we haven't heard it. But we are therefore in a situation of allegations. Judges are Caesar's wives, and Caesar's wives have to be above suspicion. If they had found 50 crores or 20 crores in cash in your house, the ED would have been taking you into government accommodation right now. If they had found this kind of money with a civil servant, what would have happened? And worse, if they had found this kind of money with somebody in public life, a minister, what would have happened? So, if you had found this money with the Home Secretary or Finance Secretary, would you have transferred him into the Transport Department? Or would the Supreme Court have come cracking down on the executive government saying, are you joking with us? What are you doing? So the transfer is not a response which is acceptable. It also has another major problem. If a person is being transferred because you prima facie believe that there is something to be investigated, then by transferring him, you are shifting a problem from court A to court B. No court is a dustbin where you send people who are of questionable character. So this transfer business is completely unacceptable as far as I am concerned. But there is a precedent which could have been followed. If you remember, there used to be a judge called Justice Ramaswamy.
Yes.
Against in the Supreme Court, and against whom allegations were made that in his previous avatar, when he was Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, he had broken certain rules in ordering furnishing, etc., for his official home at the taxpayer's cost. There was no allegation that he had taken cash from somebody. The allegation was he had broken all the rules of the book and gone beyond what is permissible in decorating his official home. Chief Justice Mukherjee, God bless his soul, one of the finest repositories of judicial virtue, came into open court, not closed court, open court with a long written speech saying what he had heard, and closed by saying he is withdrawing all judicial work from Justice Ramaswamy till an inquiry is complete, and he set up an inquiry committee of 3 judges to inquire into the allegations. They found against Justice Ramaswamy. The matter was then taken by way of an impeachment motion in Parliament. The rest, what followed, only established why Parliament cannot be trusted with these kind of decisions, because they get polarized on political lines. We had that instant. So one procedure was at least to recall all judicial work from these learned judge against whom there are these kind of allegations and order an inquiry. Now, who is going to conduct the inquiry? You don't have rules because you don't have a Judicial Accountability Commission. And you don't have a Judicial Accountability Commission because you strike down the National Judicial Accountability Law. So this is what is going on. And the executive, I'm sorry to say, is in a hapless situation. If they interfere, you will say they are interfering with the independence of the judiciary. If they don't interfere, they say they are standing by and letting the most co-equal institution being subject to these kind of allegations, which will destroy public faith. And finally, Arnab, let me tell you, as we say over and over again, the judiciary has power, neither the power over the purse nor the power over the sword. The judiciary has one and only one repository of power, the power of public opinion. That's why, however headstrong, no government dares defy the judiciary in a democracy. If the people of India feel that the judges are not to be trusted, that will be the end of democracy as we know it in India.
Sir, why did this thought
at stake?
So I would first, so to your opening remarks, I would say the executive is yet to step in. The judiciary, in this case, has let the people of the country down, and with the greatest of respect to the judges, I have no qualms in saying that. My question is this, sir. Prima facie, there is no question about the facts of the case, for there has been a cash recovery of what has been reported to be a huge stash of cash. We're told 10 crore rupees. Prima facie, the CJI-led collegium, Justice Sanjiv Khanna-led collegium, has accepted the charge because it has taken penal action by transferring him back to his parent court. But the action is obviously not what was necessary in the case. My very specific question to you, therefore, is, since prima facie the facts are proved, do you feel that the Supreme Court Collegium led by Justice Sanjiv Khanna tried to underplay or conceal or sidestep the matter or brush the matter under the carpet by dealing with it among itself, hoping that the matter will not come up before the media or the court of public opinion?
See, for me, Arnab, what has been done is wrong at so many levels. So many levels. It is wrong because that is double standards. If you are convinced that there is prima facie case for an inquiry, I'm not talking of conviction, prima facie case for an inquiry because of, if you're convinced that the allegations about recovery of cash are founded, enough to take some action, then the only action has to be suspension from judicial office by withdrawing judicial work and an immediate inquiry by a fair and impartial body. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a body only of judges. This was a time where they could have found an appropriate way of conducting an inquiry. Also, sunlight is the best disinfectant. If the judges had had an inquiry by a committee of 3 people, of which 1 was a judge and 2 were eminent citizens, and they had given a report exonerating the judge, it would have had great credibility. If they had indicted the judge, impeachment has to follow. There was nothing to discuss, but that's the way forward.
Impeachment how, sir?
So,
but then the matter goes. So 1 minute. So may I ask you this: in a case like this of Supreme Court, of a High Court judge accused and prima facie found guilty of an act of corruption, then should the judge not have been asked to resign, or should he have been impeached? What would the court have done? What were the options before the Supreme Court Collegium?
Let us articulate it correctly. You are suspecting that there is a strong suspicion that he's guilty of corrupt practice.
Yes.
You don't even have to go to the extent of prima facie guilt. on this, what would you have done to a civil servant?
Sacked him or suspended him?
No, you would have suspended him and ordered an inquiry.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
That's natural justice. So suspend him. How do you suspend a judge? Withdraw judicial work.
Remove him from all benches.
And order an inquiry. Now, inquiry by whom? Because give him a fair chance. If it is an inquiry only by judges and tomorrow they find that he has a good explanation for this money, what will it look like to the public? That it's an in-house job.
Yes, it would look like an in-house job without doubt, Mr.
By an
Salve.
independent panel, you can have a judge and have two outsiders, two eminent Indians, and get an inquiry report. If a report comes by three people, nobody can say that this is the executive which has pressured you to get rid of a judge they don't like. Nobody can say that Supreme Court has done an operation cleanup. It will look like the judiciary applies the same standards to its own, as it rigorously insists, are applied to people in public life.
So, but then this is a case of double jeopardy. In that case, the first action is of the act of corruption of the judge concerned, Justice Yashwant Varma. But should we not be open enough and honest enough and outspoken enough to say that the second mistake is that of the sitting Chief Justice of India, Justice Sanjiv Khanna? Because he led the Collegium and he merely... So did the Chief Justice of India, current sitting Chief Justice, not make a grievous mistake by merely transferring him?
I don't mince my words. I'm sorry that the Collegium has taken this kind of a decision. And I was saying it's wrong for so many reasons. One reason I have already given you, of what should have been the reaction. The second reason, what is the message you are sending? That he's not good enough for Delhi High Court, but he's good enough for Allahabad High Court. Is that not a disparagement of the Allahabad High Court?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely it is.
And I've always criticized this transfer policy on the ground. See, it is different where you said justice should appear to be clean. And therefore, if some judge has a relative in some court, you move him to another court, not because you suspect, but you say there should be no scope for allegation.
Precisely.
That's a different reason.
Yes.
But when you transfer a judge in a situation like this to another court, what are you treating the other court as, a dustbin?
So what should the Chief Justice do now, sir? What should the Chief Justice of India do now, sir?
According to me, the system, and I'm not using the word Chief Justice, the system has to react to this challenge. The challenge is to the Chief Justice, the challenge is to the government. Because I have always said that the responsibility for maintaining judicial standards cannot be left to the judges alone. This is the ground on which I criticize the NGAC judgment. The executive government has a vital stake. The elected representatives also have a vital stake in the survival of democracy. And democracy cannot survive if people lose faith in the honesty of judges. Incidents like this, where a judge is allegedly found with large sums of cash, speak the worst about the judiciary. Please, we need an inquiry. And an inquiry has to be by an independent body.
Sir, but now I'm told, just breaking news now, as we speak of this minute, that the Supreme Court has said we will do, apparently, an in-house inquiry procedure. It has to be in-house, the Supreme Court says. We will have an in-house inquiry procedure while we transfer him, and he's been sent on leave for the moment, but he's not been removed from the bench. Is the Supreme Court doing the right thing, sir?
See, the first thing is to make a mistake. The second thing is to double down on your mistake. If it is a case which calls for an in-house inquiry and if he has to be sent on leave, it is exactly what I'm saying. You need an inquiry and you need to withdraw judicial work. Now, you may say we are sending him on leave. You can't send, the Supreme Court can't send a High Court judge on leave. The High Court judge has to take leave. You could have handled it discreetly where he would have applied for leave. And first thing they should have done is order an in-house inquiry. Now, I'm sorry, this in-house inquiry also is something which is not something which is the ideal in the situation. What does it look like to you, Arnab?
So it looks terrible to me, sir. It looks terrible. It looks like a cover-up
attempt. Inquiry. I'm sure if the in-house inquiry finds him innocent, you will be here tearing into the judges saying, It's an inside job cleanup, correct?
So what I would,
Credit-
yeah, well, correct. So what I would say is that now that the court has decided that there's public
Fairness to
criticism.
that, I'm saying in fairness to the alleged delinquent judge, they must have a open inquiry. If the in-house finds him guilty, consequences will follow. But if the in-house finds him not guilty, will it carry credibility?
So more
It
likely,
won't.
I think the court, Supreme Court will now have an inquiry, and that inquiry will deal with him more severely than they had the last time, in which case they are responding to the criticism by the media while trying to underplay the mistakes and the weaknesses of the collegium system. The limitations of the collegium system have been exposed by what the Supreme Court has tried to do in the first instance in this case.
See, the in-house inquiry system was created by the judges to protect, because there are allegations against judges saying so-and-so judgment, somebody doesn't like a judgment which you've given, you're criticized saying that the judgment has been given under pressure or the judgment has been motivated by corrupt motives.
Correct.
So those kind of allegations fly thick and fast against any judgment which somebody doesn't like.
Yeah.
In-house inquiry for that is okay. Or you have whispers about certain people, in-house inquiry is okay for that. This is a case which I wish a democracy never had seen. But it is a case which a democracy is seeing. We need to cope with this. Here in public gaze, in front of firefighters and policemen, it is alleged that a large sum of money was recovered.
Yeah.
Isn't that the allegation?
Yeah.
So this is an allegation in public gaze. This has to be addressed in public gaze.
So, but the
It
collegium
can't be
system,
done by an in-house
so
person.
it's in the public gaze. The collegium system has been criticized for being such an opaque system, sir. No public scrutiny. You've criticized it. You came on my program. You came on the Republic Summit last year, sir. You remember, and you were very brutal in the way you pulled it down. But this whole system, this whole uncle judges syndrome, this whole system of let's work everything out among ourselves. And if anyone questions us, media, government, executive, or even Harish Salve, we'll say, oh, we don't need this external interference. Everything is impure. We're the only pure people. We think purely within ourselves. We don't want external oversight. We don't want external input. But even when a judge is found with 10 crore rupees in his house, we will merely transfer him, saying that we have to just give him a mild reprimand. That's what the Supreme Court has done, sir, in this case. A mild reprimand, which it will now turn into an admonishment because it's being discussed on Republic and all media channels.
As I said, this decision is wrong at so many levels. It's not right because it doesn't carry credibility. It's not right because a whole system is put on a question mark and you have to rise above this. And it is not right because it's a slur on the Allahabad High Court that somebody who's suspected to be guilty is being transferred to the Allahabad High Court. I mean, I don't know how these decisions are even taken.
Sir, did the CJI make a mistake? I'm asking you clearly, sir. Did the CJI make a mistake? Did the Chief Justice of India, Sanjiv Khanna, make a mistake in the way he handled this?
The Collegium made a mistake.
The Collegium made a mistake?
Oh, absolutely. It's wrong on so many levels. As I'm saying, this decision is wrong on so many levels. It's a mistake for the way it has been approached. It's a mistake to transfer a judge merely on allegations like this. Judicial work has to be withdrawn. And finally, it's a mistake to cast this aspersion on Allahabad High Court.
So, but in any case, always when a mistake happens, there are penalties and there are punishments. What is the punishment in this case for this collegium? Or are they above punishment or penalty?
Well, the first thing you do is acknowledge a mistake. All of us make mistakes in life, especially when you're confronted with situations which are unprecedented. All of us make mistakes in life. The best way to deal with a mistake is to sit back, acknowledge it, and correct it.
Sir, but the government has earlier called the collegium system opaque. Kiran Rijiju had said it was opaque. Then he was himself removed as law minister. The Vice President Dhankar had reportedly backed the call. But the Supreme Court said that we are the final arbiter under the constitutional scheme.
Problem, Arnab, when you talk of opacity, the system is such it has to be kept opaque. And that's why the system is so wrong. Let me tell you why. If you are considering somebody for judgeship, the kind of discussions which you have are such that do not satisfy the rigor of a proper inquiry into the fitness of a person for judge. The cure to opacity is to put all that in public domain, which means if my name is being considered for judgeship,
Yeah.
every allegation made by every stranger against me will be put in public domain,
Yeah.
and then you don't make me a judge. So you've damned me without hearing me, without giving me a chance to clear my name. That system is incapable of functioning. That system has to be opaque, and opacity.
But the Supreme Court kicks it out, sir. Every time there is a
another
plea,
way of doing it.
Every time they kick out, even Chandrachud kicked it out when there was a plea to seek abolition of the collegium system.
Of course, this will have to be a fresh constitutional amendment with political unity. They have to bring the political classes to come together. They have to get rid of this system. And if a fresh constitutional amendment is brought, if it is challenged, it has to be defended robustly.
So
Not the way the previous one was defended.
I want you to speak a little bit about corruption in the judiciary, sir. Because beyond the collegium argument, sir, 10 crore rupees allegedly found in a Delhi High Court judge's home. That's the richest and most influential High Court. It also speaks of the stink of corruption, which nobody wants to talk about. Everybody whispers about it. It is a known fact that there's a lot of corruption in the judiciary, in the highest appellate courts. But nothing is done about it. And because there's a sense of fear about criticizing or reporting, even the media is afraid about talking about it.
Well, Arnab, I'm not scared to talk about it. Let me tell you, I have been, in the last few years, told repeatedly by clients, oh, so-and-so has approached us and says the matter can be fixed. Well, my standard advice to clients is that there are a lot of punters who come and take a punt on a judgment and say, I can fix it. If you win, he says, you owe me money. If you lose, he says, sorry, I tried, but it didn't work. So I start with that caveat. Having said that, the kind of allegations which one hears in the last few years are worrisome.
Sir.
Let me just say they are worrisome. They suggest a systemic problem.
Sir.
And being in my profession, when I read a judgment, I know this is a good judgment, I know this is a bad judgment, and I know this judgment is more than just bad. All of us make mistakes. Judgments may have 2 points of view. I may agree, I may disagree. There are certain judgments which raise eyebrows. And as a lawyer with a few years of experience, I can read a judgment and say, this is a problem. That problem has been growing, let me tell you that. I don't want to go into specifics because it's not fair to discuss people behind their back. But yes, there is a serious problem. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. We all talk about it in cocktail parties and in secret whispers when we meet in seminars, and nobody does anything about it.
Sir, you are not just a lawyer, not just a jurist, a constitutional expert, you're also willy-nilly today in a position of being a moral compass for the legal fraternity. People look up to you and for things like this, the way you spoke right now. Let me tell you, Mr. Salve, not maybe people will speak because you've reached that point in your career where you don't have to care too much about pleasing people, and therefore you are in that position where you neither seek a position nor are thinking of pleasing people. And therefore you are more than an expert, but you are rather a voice, a moral compass for civil society. You began by telling me about the case of Justice Ramaswamy, sir. I think that goes back many, many years, many, many decades. And that you said was a case where somebody put some bed sheets and pillow covers in his house. And for that, he had to go through this. But now, have we become immune? Everybody is going to watch this tonight. So this interview is being quoted, being spoken about everywhere. So why is your fraternity quiet, sir? Why are there no protest marches by bar associations? Why are top leaders of the legal fraternity not coming out and speaking? What are they afraid of? Is that not very important, sir, that we break this ice? Otherwise, we'll be a 5 trillion economy without...
You have access to all of them. Why don't you interview them?
They won't speak like you do. You want answers, sir. They don't speak like Harish Salve does. They say Harish Salve is in a privileged position. He can speak like that. We can't. On the contrary, they say that.
I don't know why I'm in a privileged position. I'm as much an officer of the court as anybody else is, but it's not taking pot shots at the court. It's no use destroying a system. But sometimes you have to give a bitter pill to fix a patient. There are some truths which need to be spoken. People must know that people who work in the system are conscious there is a problem and conscious of the need to address a problem. And let me again repeat, the problem is not of corruption. The problem is a problem of perception.
Correct. Correct. Huge issue.
Above suspicion.
Yes, sir. Absolutely it is.
If there are robust systems in place, that's the only way you will ensure the strength of perception. Otherwise, and I used to always be very angry when likes of Prashant Bhushan said 5 out of 20 judges are corrupt. You know, by saying that, you have rendered all 20 corrupt because you don't know which 5 are corrupt.
Yeah, that I don't take Prashant Bhushan seriously, sir, but...
No, I'm just telling you the kind of criticism. I said this to Mr. Shanti Bhushan when we were opposing each other in a case.
Right.
You said that I can tell you, even a former Chief Justice like Bharucha once said 6 out of 20 Chief Justices have been corrupt. I said, you've rendered all of them corrupt.
Exactly.
Because, but you've not named them.
Exactly.
So when a man looks at a Chief Justice, he says, aha, was he one of them?
So should the government impeach him? Should Parliament use this opportunity to carry out an impeachment?
I think Parliament has to discuss this. Parliament has to fix the perception.
So the only way is to impeach, sir, rather than give a long rope and say, okay, redo your actions, bring him back, have an inquiry, and then say, after 2 days we found him guilty, and by Monday he will force him to, he will gracefully resign, almost making him look like a martyr. Rather than that...
What has happened is deeply distressing to me at so many levels. But I think sometimes when bad things happen, these are the moments to wake up and fix things which you have not looked at carefully, which you should have looked at carefully, but have missed the moment.
Yes.
And have now landed in your lap and landed in a situation which is unacceptable.
So that means impeachment process should follow. You support that, sir?
No, there has to be. See, the present impeachment process was good for the 40s and 50s and 60s. It doesn't work. We need a structure of judicial appointment and accountability. And Parliament has to again pick up the gauntlet on this. Because ultimately, I vote for people to make the law. I want those whom I voted for to sit together and make a law. Make a law and fix this. And I want all of them, irrespective of party affiliations, to put their heads together and find a solution to this.
I'm with the long term and medium term on this. I'm just asking you for the immediate. For the immediate,
the perception.
Sir, for the immediate, why allow the Supreme Court Collegium to retrace its steps by saying we'll have an inquiry?
Well,
why not?
I've said it in so many words, Arnab.
So they can't.
Bad enough to make a mistake, it is worse to double down on a mistake.
So then the only option is an impeachment process under the present system, sir?
Not impeachment process. As I have said, if speaking for myself.
Yes. Sacking.
Thank God I will never be in that position because I'm 68, I'm past the Supreme Court age. But if I was in the Supreme Court, I would have recommended this is a moment where we need an independent inquiry.
Independent inquiry. Yeah, not an in-house inquiry.
If 3 of us find him guilty, everybody will say, yeah, but that was obvious. If 3 of us find him not guilty, everybody will say, clean up job.
That's a very good suggestion, sir. I'm sure your words are going to ring loud.
An independent inquiry.
Yeah.
He has to be asked to go on leave.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt in my mind if the independent inquiry holds him guilty,
yeah,
you will not need any further process.
Correct. Well, I'm pretty sure, sir, your words are going to ring very, very far. And once again, I say this because this interview will be played every
Sometimes I feel I'm whistling in the wind, but it's...
No, you're not, sir. Let me tell you, you're not whistling in the winds. The winds are carrying your whistle and they're going through the prairies from the tundra to the deserts and everybody is going to follow it, sir. I can tell you, your words, please don't underplay it, which is why I chose this afternoon immediately to call you and thank you for talking to me. And I feel that the suggestion of Mr. Salve should be taken by the Supreme Court. Double jeopardy should not happen. He's also said when you make a mistake a first time, you should not double down on it. That's as clearly as someone can speak about the Supreme Court and its collegium. I thank you very, very much. It's an absolute pleasure. Harish Salve.
Pleasure being on your...
I'm grateful again, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Very grateful. Thank you.